Good evening and welcome back to Thrive Digging Deep, our Thursday night edition. I'm calling tonight our Thursday night special. I did an interview with Talisha T. Leaves Pringle, and she has some absolutely incredible things that God is doing and has done in her life. And I want to take an opportunity to allow her to share her story and to share her testimony in hopes that it will not only be a blessing to you that are watching and listening, but also serve as an inspiration to really open yourself up and to allow God to work and move in your life and to do some of the amazing things that He's done in her and through her for the benefit of the kingdom. So hope you've got your cup of coffee or a cup of Coke, or whatever it is you drink. Get comfortable. It's about a 13, 14-minute interview. Be blessed as you watch this.
I was in the nation of Paraguay, which is in the continent of South America in between Brazil and Argentina. We were there for about 10 days, and while we were there, we got the opportunity to minister at a couple of the different churches and to visit one of the schools that the missionaries' family actually started in the city of Lambaré. And on the last part of the trip, we got to help participate and minister in the National Youth Conference for Paraguay.
Okay. What was the inspiration behind the trip? Like, did you just wake up one day and say, I want to go to Paraguay or I want to do missions work? What was the inspiration?
I've had a passion for missions work and for the Hispanic population in general for a few years now. And since I went on my trip to Honduras in 2011, I've wanted to go on another one, and for various reasons, things just haven't been able to work out. And this year I really prayed about it, and I felt like God was leading me to go on this trip, and He provided a way for me to go.
Okay, so what was a typical day like in Paraguay? Like, from a mission standpoint and what you guys were involved in, what was a typical day like?
Well, on Sunday, we ministered at 2 services. So that morning we woke up, we split into 2 groups and traveled to 2 different cities to minister at churches. And the people in Paraguay they're really welcoming, and they have the hospitality there is unbelievable. So they wanted to cook a meal for us, and so we ate lunch at the church there. Then we traveled back to have a small break before we went to another service at the main church in Lambaré.
Okay, so were there any street meetings involved in the missions work? Was there any canvassing of neighborhoods?
We didn't do any street meetings. For the National Youth Conference, we got together with a number of youth. We got there a day early, and we went out and we evangelized around to, I don't know how many blocks we walked, a lot, and just random people. They're really nice people, and so when you go up to them, they're really welcoming, most of them, and they'll listen to you and hear what you have to say. So we got to talk to them just about church and about Jesus in general. If they felt like they were too old or couldn't come to the youth conference, we told them about the church there in that city that they could go and visit.
Now, why Paraguay? Why do you think Paraguay was chosen as a missions location?
Well, Paraguay hasn't had an AYC group there ever at all. We were the first groups to go to Paraguay. And the missionary there, he was actually raised there. His parents were missionaries there first. And when they initially approached people about going to Paraguay, they were told not to go there. It was pretty much they weren't going to succeed if they went to Paraguay. It's a really hard country to reach.
Pretty much what they call a preacher's graveyard.
Basically is what they were told. And this year, Brother Bird which is the missionary there, felt that it was a good time to have a group come. About 80% of the population of Paraguay are young people, and so this was a great time for other young people to come in and help with their youth conference, and just to show them that, God does love you, and it doesn't matter how old you are, which is a big thing there. They feel like they're too young, or they don't have enough to offer.
Now I'm going to run this back just a little bit, because you said 80% of the population of Paraguay is young people. Where are the adults?
I don't know if it's just because they die early or what, but I believe it was 35 and under 80% of the population.
Wow. It's not common to see young people going on mission trips.
Yeah.
Where we're wanting to save our money for the next iPod or the lowly Android or, a new computer or clothing.
Yeah.
But you've gone on 2 mission trips, so help me understand the reasoning behind that.
About 2010, at a youth camp, I was praying on the altar, and I just felt like God gave me a burden and a passion for Hispanic population Hispanic communities. And I've always loved missions. I've always wanted to go on a missions trip, hearing people go on one and seeing all the great testimonies and just people with a hunger for God and a passion. People who could maybe not even have the chance to hear about the one true God if it wasn't for missionaries coming to them and witnessing to them just always touched me. And so the fact that I got the opportunity to do it is just amazing.
Oh, mission trips aren't free.
No.
Nobody's handing out
No.
bags of cash saying, if you want to go on a mission trip, here's a bag full of money, go and may God be with you. Mm-hmm. So how did you finance the Honduras trip, and how did you finance the trip to Paraguay?
For the Honduras trip, it was mainly I had a lot of people sponsor me to go on the Honduras trip. If it wasn't for other people having a passion or wanting to help me reach my goals and my dreams, I wouldn't have been able to go to Honduras at all. God really worked that out for me to be blessed to go on that trip. For the trip to Paraguay, I worked 2 jobs and did some fundraisers at my church. We did 3 fundraisers, me and 2 other youth from my church who were going on other mission trips to help raise money. And I also had people sponsor me to go on this trip as well.
Okay. Give us an idea how much total between Honduras and Paraguay you had to raise to go on these mission trips.
Total, about $8,000.
$8,000.
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
Yes.
Do you know what $8,000 could have been spent on?
A car.
A car. Coach purses.
Clothes, shoes.
Coach purses.
Yeah, Michael Kors.
Michael Kors, accessories.
Yes. Yeah.
And you chose to take that money and use it to go on mission trips.
Yes.
So you got $8,000 now invested in going overseas and responding to your burden for the Hispanic community. Mm-hmm. How does that translate into what happens now that you're back here in the United States?
Now that I'm back here, I have even more of a passion to help out Hispanic communities. We have a number of churches in the UPC, but there are a lot of Hispanic communities that just aren't being reached, and so I would love to be able to try and reach that wherever I'm living. I would also love to go back to Paraguay through either a Next Steps program or an AIM program.
Is there a significant Hispanic population where you are now in Spartanburg?
There is a pretty decent-sized Hispanic population in Spartanburg.
You know there's also a pretty decent-sized Spanish population in Spartanburg. You won a soul while you were at college. You attended Converse College in Spartanburg, and you won a soul while you were there at school. How much of your missions trip to Honduras had an impact or an effect on you winning it? So if at all?
Going on a mission trip, especially to a foreign country, it forces you to step out of your comfort zone. You have no choice, especially if you don't know the language. I knew some Spanish, but not a lot, so I was forced to try and pick up on the language and just rely on Jesus to help me, to witness to these people and to pray for these people in the altar. So I had to let go of a lot of fear going on that trip, and that helped me coming back, because it's like, if I can witness to people who don't even speak the same language as I do, then what's stopping me from talking to someone about Jesus who can understand everything I'm saying?
Okay. Wrong. Word on the street is that Paraguay has a restaurant, at least one, if not more, that had 26 different types of meat.
Yes.
Do you know what kind of man heaven that would be?
It was heaven. It was wonderful.
What do you do with 26 different types of meat?
You pray and ask for forgiveness for being gluttonous, because it's hard to they keep coming and they keep offering you the meat, and some of them are very adamant about you taking the meat.
Wow. So they take full consideration. They enforce the full weight of the scripture that says man shall not live by bread alone.
Yes,
There's got to be some meat to go with it.
Lots of meat.
Plenty of meat. Wow. I want you to talk to 2 groups as we wrap this up. I want you to talk to those who have not been involved in any way, shape, form, or fashion in the area of soul winning, whether it's on a missions trip or whether it's locally in their school, their community. I want you to talk to them about the impact that the mission trips had on you from a soul winning perspective, and to encourage them to not necessarily go on a missions trip, but to encourage them to be awakened to the need to reach people around them where they are?
I would just say don't let fear stop you. There are so many people you think that, oh, they're not going to want to hear what I have to say. They're not going to want to listen. But they are. Some of them are just too afraid to ask you about it. And they're just waiting on you, and they're hoping that you will just share the love that you have and share the knowledge of God and who He is with them. So if it's fear that's stopping you, don't let fear stop you, because chances are they're wanting you to witness to them as much as you want to witness to them. So don't let that stop you. And also, people are so appreciative. One of the most impactful things was when we were leaving Paraguay, the missionary's wife, who was a native-born Paraguayan, was just thanking us. She was in tears, crying, thanking us for coming here, because she said that if it was not for people having a love to share the gospel and the truth with people, she would never have known about the one true God. She would never have known who Jesus was if it wasn't for someone having a heart and a desire to go to Paraguay and to witness to her. So even if you don't feel like you're called to go to a mission field, you have a mission field where you are, whether it's your school or your job, your neighborhood, wherever you are. There are people there who may never know about Jesus. They may never know who He is, that He's the one true God. They may never know about the plan of salvation if you don't tell them.
The second group I want you to talk to is the group that may see this video, that will see this video, or they'll hear about your trip to Paraguay or your trip to Honduras, and they're saying to themselves, I feel the same thing she feels, that call of God to go on a mission trip to minister to a group of people, but there's no way I'll ever be able to raise the money to go. What would you say to them?
If you feel the burden and the passion to go, you have it for a reason. And so talk to your pastor, get his blessing, get his approval. After that, put it in God's hands. I never thought, even working 2 jobs for this trip to go to Paraguay, that I would have the money to get it. But I can tell you that every single person who went to Paraguay on my mission trip, we all have stories about how God just blessed us. People that we hadn't talked to in years, people's parents, their jobs, just deciding to collect an offering to bless people with. God can use people who may not even be in church to bless you to go on this mission trip. You're going on this trip to share the gospel with people who have never heard it before. God is going to honor that, and He will provide the money for you to go.
Amen. An amazing story from an amazing young lady, and I encourage you, if you feel a desire to go on a missions trip, whether you've got $8 or $8,000, I encourage you to do what T. Leaf said. Put it in the hands of God. Speak to your pastor. Get your pastor's blessing. Get his approval. And then put your faith into action and watch God work. And maybe you don't feel called to go out on a missions trip and do all the fundraising. There's a missions field right here in North America, right where you live, whether it's school, whether it's in your neighborhood, whether it's on your job. And I encourage you to seek God as well and allow God to work in you and through you to open some doors and to win some souls.